And she was like, hey, stupid, of course I know who owns Facebook. And I said, well, who do you think owns your friends on Facebook? And what happens when you spend all this money building an audience on Facebook, but you don't build your own database? So she walked away from that call with something to think about and how she could change her strategy. So specifically to answer your question, it's that, you have to look at things strategically. You have to think about, what is it that my competitors are doing? What is it that they're not doing? Where are my people? Where are my people hanging out? If she's a food blogger, her audience probably isn't hanging out on LinkedIn, and her audience probably very much is on Facebook. But what if you could cross-market to your Facebook audience by doing Google Hangouts, and you could build a community on Google+, which I don't care what anybody says is way more frickin' important than Facebook. But what if you could build a community all around healthy living and do hangouts where you talk about gluten-free eating and clean eating and all that kind of stuff, and how that might impact search results, which, by the way, you're not showing up in search results at all when I Google information on gluten-free eating. So people aren't very strategic about what kind of content they're creating, and they're not very strategic about the different iterations in which they're creating content.
And may I add, the ultimate goal. That's where I think a lot of brands, or at least companies we've worked with, forget or lose sight of the mark. Because as you said, hey, if you're using Facebook, why aren't you, connecting the dots with email? Because at the end of the day, all these actions have to have a result. What is it you're trying to do? Are you building a community? Are you trying to sell widgets? Are you pushing, health food? So there has to be an end result, and a lot of companies forget that part.
Well, they're not thinking about it at all, and that was one of the questions I asked this young food blogger, who's super smart.
Sure.
But one of the things that I asked her, when I looked at the content that she was producing, I always have to go into, again, I'm a strategist, and I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. So a lot of times I go into conversations and I have to say, okay, here's the deal. I don't want to hurt your feelings, but if I'm not honest with you, I can't help you. And so right. I said, you are producing beautiful recipes. Who does your food photography? I do. That takes a lot of time, doesn't it? And she said, yes. And I said, well, at some point in time, as you start to build your business, maybe you need to think about, am I the person to do my food photography, or is it someone else? Because, what do you want what is it that you're doing that you want to make money from? Right. And then I looked at her content, and all of her content was recipes. And I said, with all due respect, recipes are kind of a commodity, okay? Because think about it. The other day I wanted to make corn that had, I just wanted to make like creamed corn for dinner on Sunday night. And I'm a really good cook, but like how hard is it, right? Corn plus some cream, right? But I thought, I'll see if I can find something that's interesting online. So what do? I go to Google, I Google cream corn recipes, I get a bunch of different recipes, I click on a couple, I try one. I don't care who it is that's giving me a recipe. I want to look at the ingredients, I want to look at the reviews, I want to see if, how much prep time it takes. I'm not necessarily saying, oh, I'm going to go to Amy's site to see if she has a recipe. I don't care that much. I just want a recipe. Is that resonating with some of you here? Because there are a lot of things that we don't really care where we get it. We want it quickly, So one of the things that one of the things I identified that was missing in her content execution was that all of her content was recipes, which is a commodity, instead of why you should consider gluten-free eating, how gluten-free eating can change your life, how gluten-free eating can make you lose weight, how gluten-free eating might help you combat rheumatoid arthritis. You see what I'm saying? I mean, those are the things that help you win when it comes to search results. People have problems, you have solutions. Those are not as commoditized as give me the damn sweet corn recipe.
Right, right. Doc, you've got the next one. You need to get off mute, though.
That would help, wouldn't it? Okay. That would help. Well, somebody told me I was breathing too hard, so. Well, talking about content, obviously, I think we all recognize how important it is. But, the question came up yesterday as to whether content curation can be as effective as writing original content. I'd be interested in your take on that, Shelly.
It's interesting. I think that content curation is really important. In fact, I believe that some of those of us who have been sort of early pioneers in the social media space, part of the secret to our success is that we are innately wired to be content curators. We find something, I see you nodding, Gabriella.
Absolutely.
We find something, we know this can help people, we want to share it. It's what we do. It's what we need. It makes us happy. Helping other people makes us happy. So you know what? We get this concept. Not everybody is wired to help people to be happy. And but I think content curation has been going on for a really long time. I think content curation is really important. But I think that content curation is also the lazy person's content marketing solution. And Gabriella made a point earlier, and you have to ask yourself, to what end? What does success look like? Okay? If what I'm trying to do is feed my website with content, and that's all I want to do, and I want to drive traffic, and I'm feeding content, I'm curating all this stuff, super. If you want to sell stuff, maybe you need to rethink that.
Right. I agree 100%, but one thing, if I might add, at least in our experience, when we've used content curation with brands and companies and entrepreneurs and suggested and recommended they use various, curation tools, we don't do it because they're not blogging or they're not on Facebook or they're not on Twitter.
Absolutely. It's augmenting.
It's almost like a hush branding, where you're building authority within a certain community of curators, and you can throw those, I use Scoop It. I mean, everybody knows.
Yeah.
And every once in a while, I'll throw a couple of Scoop Its up there, because it makes sense, and because guess what? It's building our authority on that particular topic.
I agree.
But you're right.
I agree.
Curation is a lazy man's marketing, but when it's used in as
part of, exactly. But I'll give you another example. Yesterday, I was looking at a site. That's let me think how to describe it. It's actually one of my clients, and it's something that I'm not involved with. And they do it's a nonprofit kind of initiative that they do within the community, and it's an awesome initiative. They give a whole bunch of money away to kids that are focused on STEM initiatives, which I'm really passionate about. And I noticed as I looked at this site that they had a blog component, which was really interesting, because when they did this initiative in the community 2 years ago, they didn't have a blog, and it had been something I recommended. So of course I'm like, well, where's that blog content coming from? Because we're not writing it, and we create a lot of corporate blog content for this particular client. So I went to the blog link on their website, and there was amazing content in there. I mean, blog posts that on all different aspects of STEM education and STEM learning, and cool apps for STEM learning, and blah blah blah. And I thought, this is just fantastic. I'm so impressed that they're creating this kind of content. And as I started clicking on the blog posts, I realized that they've used some kind of mechanism to feed all this content into their blog. And every time you clicked on a post, it took you away from their website to another website, which is great unless you want to sell something.
Exactly. Exactly.
And you know what? This STEM initiative, this didn't matter because they don't want to sell anything, and they want to give people resources to help them learn. And so they're not looking at lead gen or lead nurturing or how, where somebody is in a sales funnel. They just want to provide information. But if you want to sell stuff to people, you had better be thinking about how you treat content in the social media space, on your website, how you're curating it, all that sort of thing, and think about what path to purchase is this particular customer on, what content is going to resonate with them, how am I going to, how is what I'm creating going to lead them to a sale, or how's it going to help them make a sale?
Right. Let me switch topics here, or switch roads. Recently, you wrote an article about the evolution of link building as content marketing. What do you think the evolution of link building is, and how do you see it playing a role in content strategy?
Well, it's interesting because you have a lot more experience with link building than I do. And, I think that what I loved about this piece, I was actually, Ben Wills had written a piece over at Marketing Pilgrim, and I thought it was just, it's one of those things that you have a browser tab open forever and you're reading it and you think, God, I really like how he thinks. And so, what I think that is happening, again, and it goes back to search and how search has changed, and how how keywords have changed. And it used to be, when it came to domain authority, and you know this way better than I do, Gabriella, but when it came to domain authority, what SEO teams had been able to do in terms of building links, and those links may not even necessarily be all that relevant links. Again, every time I tell a story, I've got something that I've just looked at. I was just looking at a website of a lawyer that reached out to me and wanting some marketing help. And what he really wanted wasn't marketing help. What he really wanted was somebody to SEO the hell out of his website. And I looked at his website, and I used some grading tools to grade his website, and it was a brand new site that just launched a year ago, and he had links that were coming into his website from recipe sites and from fitness sites and from all different kinds of places that were really signals that was telling Google a whole bunch of badass linking, and not badass in the good way.
Right.
The bad way has, so somebody has led you down the path of a bad linking strategy, and that's obvious to search engines. And so I think that, and one of the things that Ben said in his original article, and this is on my website, I can send a link to you guys if you want, but what was so interesting is that, when you think about link building, and when you think about the links that you provide, for instance, in your content, search engines can see what user behavior is. So if I write a post about the importance of lead generation in B2B marketing, and you follow a link that comes to my website and you read that post, and I provide some other links as resources within that post that you may go check out. By the way, search engines see that too. But what else search engines see is where you go after you leave my site. Do you keep digging further for information on lead gen for a B2B business, or have I answered your questions? Then, do you come back to my site on a regular basis because I've proven to you that I know what I'm talking about? Search engines see that as well. So that to me was what the concept of the evolution of content marketing, and how when you can think about providing content that solves people's problems, providing content that serves them. Search engines see that, and that speaks volumes about your credibility way beyond what you're doing with regard to, you know,
manual link building and link circles and bad
and keyword optimization and all that sort of thing, you know. And it's to me it's fascinating, and it makes a lot of sense.